The hardest thing about this chapter are these first two sections, keeping the different forms separated in your mind. Ultimately, we are still doing 5 steps no matter which format we're doing. Okay? The homework. Some of you came in and got some help. Generally, did you look and check in the back of the book? Okay. Were you able to get some of these? Some of them? Okay. So you weren't totally lost, were you? Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Today we're going to do another set of problems. All right. And it's going to be kind of similar. It's just the format's going to be given to you in a different way, the equation. All right. So if I give you it in this form, this is called vertex form. One piece of information is given to you no matter which form it's given. In standard form, you're given the direction and you're given the y-intercept. Okay? In vertex form, you're given the direction and you're given the vertex. Okay? In intercept form, you're given a point and its reflection. Okay? So you might want to clarify that in this format we're given the direction and we're given the vertex. In this form we're given a point and its reflection, in addition to the direction. Okay? All right. The direction is going to be determined again by whether or not you have a positive sign or a negative sign hanging out in front of that parenthesis. Okay, so the direction and the vertex, the direction and a point and its reflection. Okay, so the first thing you want to do as you're looking at these is first determine which form is given to you. What is this form? This is the vertex. So our steps are pretty much the same. Step 1 is always the direction. How does this parabola point? How do you know that it points up? This is a positive value, right? 1/2 isn't negative, it's positive, so we know it opens up. Okay, this is a little bit different in that the y-intercept is not going to be -4. The y-intercept is not -4. The y-intercept is when what happens? And so what happens if we have the y-intercept? What value do we know is 0? So if x is 0 and we're looking for the y-intercept, what do I do to figure out my corresponding y value? You plug in 0. That means y is equal to 1/2 times 0 minus 3 squared minus 4. Agreed? Which is 1/2 times what? 9 minus 4. And on your calculator, what does that give you? Get your calculators out. Come on. You guys do this. You got to be getting these right on your calculator, so you need to know how to... What do you get? Okay, it's going to be 1/2 or 0.5. So what is this as a point? What is this as a point? 0, 1/2. Okay, step 3 is always the what? Vertex. Okay, here's the beauty of the vertex form. It's given to you in this format. All right? Here is your vertex. Set x minus h equal to 0, which means x is equal to h. That's your x value. Here's your y value. So the vertex is going to have coordinates of, what's my x value going to be? Set x minus 3 equal to 0, so x is going to equal, so 3 comma, what's my y value? -4. That's how you find it. Okay, set this equal to 0, to find your x value, and right there is your y value of the vertex. If it says -4, it's -4. If it's +4, it's +4 for the y, okay? The x value is the value inside your parentheses when you set it equal to 0. So if x minus 3 is equal to 0, then x is equal to 3. If x plus 3 is what I have in parentheses, then x is equal to -3. So here is your x value, and there is your y value in vertex form. So what do you get in vertex form? You get your vertex. You do not have to do -b/2a. That's the nice thing about vertex form. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to get our red pen out, and we're going to hit 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to put our axis of symmetry through that point. Because step 4 is going to be what? Nope. Axis of symmetry, right? What is my axis of symmetry equal to as an equation of a line? X equals 3. It has to go through the vertex. Right? And it's a vertical line, so it's x equals. Okay, all right. Our what do you call it? Y-intercept is at 0, 1/2, correct? That's right there. So what is our reflection point? Six 1/2, exactly. Why do I know that it's 6 1/2? So how many units to the axis of symmetry? 3. So how many units does this have to be? So that means how many units have I gone all together? 6. If my y-intercept is 3 units to this axis of symmetry, then I have to go 3 more units to get to the reflection. Don't we always have to plot a point and its reflection? Well, we determined that 6 1/2 is in 0 1/2 was our y-intercept, right? Is that better? So this is my y-intercept. That's a point. This is my vertex. That's a point. This is my reflection point. That's my third point. We always need at least 3 points to graph this. Olivia? For what? Because isn't that the y-intercept? Isn't step 2 finding your y-intercept? And if you have a y-intercept, Olivia, x is always 0. Okay? Sarah? Yeah, the y-intercept has always been when x is 0. What is our y value? And it's a plug and chug. Stick 0 into your equation and tell me what the corresponding y value should be. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Oh, then it says find the min or the max. Do we have a min or a max? Min. What is the value? -4. What value is that? It's the y value of your vertex. So, you know, on the homework from last night, the odds were all in the back. If you are not showing me how you got that answer, I will not give you credit on those max and min problems. You have to figure out your x value to figure out your y value. There is clearly some work that has to get shown. Okay? All right, here we go. So what format is this? This is vertex format. So what is the direction? We know that it's up because there's a positive sign understood to be in front, right, of that parentheses. That makes sense? All right, if we want to figure out our y-intercept, then what are we going to let x equal? All right, if x is 0, then y is going to equal 0 minus 2 squared minus 3, which is 1. And so this is a point of 0, 1. How did we do so far? This has not changed from yesterday. It's just not as clearly defined where that y-intercept is. You actually have to physically put it into the problem. Whereas in standard form, the first two terms dropped out because they had x's in them. And so by default, that last integer term was always your y-intercept. Does that make sense? Okay, Sarah?
Number 2, do we always have to do a point, or can we just write y?
Nope, I want a point because the y-intercept is a point. Okay, now we need to find our vertex. Well, that's very easy in this problem. What is the x value of this vertex? What is the y value? -3. Change the sign. Keep the sign. Change the sign that's inside the parentheses by setting it equal to 0 and solving. You get x is 2. Keep the sign over here. -3 means -3 is part of my vertex. Madeline?
Well, the x minus 2 will that be x plus 2?
Could be. I mean, if I had x plus 2 in parentheses, sure. It just depends on the problem. Okay, get your red pen out. 2, -3 is my vertex, which tells me I'm going to run that axis of symmetry through that point. And that tells me then what is the equation of that line going to be? Yeah, isn't it always the x value of your vertex? Have you seen that connection? Okay, good. All right, we have 2, -3, 0, 1. Okay, so what is my reflection point? 4, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1. Is making sense? Okay. Anybody got a question? Two, -3 is your vertex. 0, 1 is my y-intercept, and that's the one that gets reflected over to the other side. Okay, what format is this? Intercept form, okay? Oh, yeah, sorry. What is it, a max or a min? Minimum of what? How do you know that? It's the y value of the vertex. Your max or your min is your y value, Madeline. I'm never going past this point. What's that y value? Well, 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we go. Our intercept method, this points up, yes? The only difference that I want you to recognize here is this one right here. Instead of the y-intercept, I want you to write the x-intercepts. You've got 2 of them. I can't spell. Okay. And an x-intercept is when what is 0? Because it's where it crosses the x-axis, correct? Okay. Anybody have an idea of what that point is? I've got 2 of them. What is one x value? Ani? 3. Why is it going to be 3? So you're going to set x minus 3, which is a factor, equal to 0. So x is going to equal 3, right? What's my other one going to be? Because you're going to set x minus 7, which is a factor, equal to 0. So x is equal to 7. So look, I have 3, 0, and 7, 0. So this is the only one that's a little different in this case, because I'm not looking for the y-intercepts. I'm really interested more in the x-intercepts, because that's what's given to you in this problem. Okay? Because what's nice is, what do we know about these 2 points? They're equally spaced, which means they are considered to be reflections of each other, right? So where do you think that vertex is going to fall? In between, because if it's a reflection, it's got to fall in between them, right? Okay. So how? I don't really know. All I know is that somewhere along this line is my vertex, right? Which that just jumps me down to step 4, which tells me that x is equal to what? 5. Okay. Mathematically, how am I going to figure out that point of 5? Because this is pretty easy, right? I can see that in between these points is this is the what position? This is what? And where is it found between these 2 points? In the middle, also known as halfway. And how, if you have a point, do you find the halfway point? Elaine? Three. It's the midpoint formula. You want to look at your midpoints. All right, so for 3 for your vertex, you find the midpoint. So this is why you can't forget how to find midpoint. How do you find the midpoint? It's the average. What do you do with the average of 2 values? By 2, but what do I do with those values? You add them. What is 7 plus 3 over 2? There is your x value. All right, my question is going to be, how do I find, so I know that x is 5, right? And what is that going to give you? 5 minus 3 times 5 minus 7. So that's 2 times, which is, and so the vertex then is at 5, comma. Now, didn't we know that it had to be in the 4th quadrant? Why did we know that it had to be down here and not up here? Because our graph opens up. That means somewhere down here. If it was up here, our graph would open down, wouldn't it? Okay? So our vertex is at 5, 1, 2, 3, negative 4. And there's our graph. So step 5, there really is no step 5 because we already have, from step 2, we already have a point and its reflection. So do we have 3 points? Do we have the vertex? Do we have a point and its reflection? Do we have the axis of symmetry? Do we know the direction? Okay, so for this method on intercept, what you need to remember is find the midpoint. You don't really have a step 5. If you want to put one point of your x-intercepts here and the other one in 5, that's fine, just to fill in the space. Elaine? Yeah, you're going to want to because it's not going to always come out nicely like 5. So go through the process so that you have the method. Sarah? Well, where am I going to put my vertex? It's the midpoint. Somewhere between these 2 values is my vertex. So 7 plus 3 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So somewhere on this line, my vertex is going to fall when x is 5. And so if we know that x is 5, plugging it into our equation, Sarah, gives me what y is equal to. Finding the midpoint between 7 and 3. 7 plus 3 divided by 2 is 5. That's my x value. So y is going to equal 5 minus 3 and 5 minus 7. Okay? Yep. Well, okay, the max and the min, Madeline, is what value? I know, same thing. Look at your problem. Where does your max or min always fall? Okay, but in this problem, the max or the min is always known as the what? It's the y value of your vertex. Do we have a max or a min? Minimum. What's the y value of your vertex? -4. So we have a minimum at -4. So your max and your min, Madeline, is always the y value of the vertex. It makes no difference which format I look at. Okay? All right, up or down? Why do we know that it's down? 2 is negative. Okay, what format is this? Which one is it? Intercept, which means I have to use what? I have to use the midpoint. Okay? All right. What's my step 2 going to give me? X-intercepts. What are my two X-intercepts? 4 what? And? Okay. Step 3. What am I doing in step 3? I'm using the, what values do I add? 4 plus -1/2, right? So there's 3/2. See why that doesn't come out cleanly always. Does that make sense? So we know that we've got -1, 0, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. But here, along this line, which is step 4, is where our vertex is going to fall, somewhere on that dotted line. Does that make sense? Now, let's think. Should our vertex be in quadrant 4? Or should our vertex be in quadrant 1? Why? Because it's going down. Does that make sense? If my vertex is down here, what direction is my parabola pointing? But we said it had to point down. So we know that somehow our y value is going to be positive. All right, where am I going to find that y value? I have to put in what? What x value? Put in 3/2 into what? So y is going to equal -2 parentheses 3/2 minus 4 and 3/2 plus 1, right? Does that make sense? You can put that straight into your calculator. All right, so do it. That's why I want you all doing this, because if you make a mistake, very often it is plugging it into your calculator. So remember, as long as it comes out as a decimal, doesn't really matter. I can do 1.5 or I can do 3/2. So we got y is equal to 12.5. So what is my vertex coordinate? Okay, so 1.5, 12.5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're right here. And it's where we expected it to be, isn't it? We expected it to be in quadrant 1, somewhere in quadrant 1. Oh, yeah, off the page. So this is stuff you have to memorize. But it's all kind of the same, isn't it? I mean, you've all pretty much finding the same information. It's just what is given that's different. So let's do a general page. Is there anything else? No. All right. So we're going to clarify this. And this will be a sheet that hopefully you'll know by the time Friday comes around. Standard form. That's the form of what? What's the general form for standard form? Y equals? Okay. What is given? The y-intercept, which is when x is 0, so it's 0c, correct? And what else is given? The direction. You're always going to get the direction. What do we need to find? And how do we find the vertex? And then plug that value in. and you get the y value. Correct? All right. And then we still need the axis of symmetry and the reflection point, okay? So then we have vertex format. In vertex form, y equals okay? What's given? The direction and the vertex. And it's going to be h comma k, correct? In other words, it's the opposite sign of what's here, right? If this says minus h, correct? Then we want to use the positive value here. If it's positive value here, then we use the negative value because we're setting x minus h equal to 0. Okay? Right, but the k is always the same. If it's positive here, it's positive in your vertex. Your y, right. Yeah, you get the entire x and y. There's your x, there's your y. Okay? What do we need to find? And how do we find the y-intercept? Let x equal 0 and solve in the equation. What else do we need to find? And a reflection point. So I guess I also should have said, what else do we need to find here? We also need to find a reflection point, don't we? I didn't state it. I mean, I think I said it, but we didn't write it down. Axis of symmetry, no matter which one. Yeah. Okay, the last one's called the what? Okay, that's y equals a x minus, huh? What do I have written down? An x minus p in both? We'll make this P1 and P2 because they're different, right? So what's given? You're given the direction and 2 x-intercepts. It's going to be P1, comma 0 and P2, comma 0. And they're the opposite signs, right? So what do we need to find? And what do we have to use to find the vertex? Use your midpoint of P1 and P2. That gives you your x value. And how do I find the corresponding y value? Plug the x in. Do I have to find a reflection point? No, because I have to already, right? I've got both of my x-intercepts. How are we doing? Is this lesson a little bit better than the other one?